Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. A few videos ago we looked at 5 common narrative tasks that most games would use and you will potentially need in your game. However, today we're going to look at a different side of a narrative and we're going to look at events. So events are something you can trigger on a quest reaching a certain state or dialogue being chosen or reaching a certain state, and you can add functionality to it to say when something happens, do this. It's really easy to just come into your quest, complete the task to run code here, but if you're having to check on every single quest new state, does the state ID equal this, does the state ID equals this, and have a massive branching switch, it gets really messy, which is where narrative events come in. You can click on any single node in narrative, come down, add an event, and then tell it to give it some specific functionality, nice and reusable. So in this tutorial, we're going to look at 5 narrative events that I use in nearly every game I create, and I'm going to take a guess that you're at least going to use some of them. So let's get started. The first event we're going to look at is a very useful one that I'd argue would be most used event probably, and it's the destroy actors with tag. Now this is a super useful tag because you can use it to get rid of certain parts of your quest if you branch down a different way. You can use it to clear your quest up at the success or the failure of it. You can use it to initiate cutscenes by destroying certain doors and stuff. It's super useful and it is really basic. All you do is loop over all your actors with a tag and then destroy them. That's it. Just make sure you don't fall for the common issue where you return after the destroy, otherwise it will only destroy one. You need to return on the completed. For the get graph display text, I've just said destroy all actors with the tag of that, and it's so simple. So I can say go into the garage and then I can drag off here and I'll just say success, and if you complete this, then if I come and add the event of destroy actors with tag, I can say destroy, I don't know, Glenn, because we like picking on Glenn. So as soon as this is run, Glenn will disappear. You'll see if I start the quest here, it will say go into the garage and Glenn is still there. But as soon as I run into the garage, you see now you see him and now you don't. Glenn has successfully disappeared. And that is why it's super useful, because you can really tell it to destroy absolutely anything you want. Another example you can use it for is if I add in a pick up item part here, and I will say you need to pick up, let's do tire, and I'll say you need to pick up 3 tires, just like so. Complete it. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to come afterwards and say destroy all actors with the tag of tire, but after it. And the reason this is useful is if I come in front of here and just add a item of a tire and I duplicate in 4 tires, but you can only collect 3, we don't want it remaining in the world where you can never do anything with it. So you'll now see if I run up and start this quest, I have 4 tires, but I only need to pick 3 up. So if I pick the first one, let's say number 1, I pick number 2 up, and then number 3, the 4th one disappears because we no longer have any use for it. You could maybe make it disappear when they run away so far away or start the next part of the quest, but as a basic example, clearing up your quest afterwards is super useful. The final example showing why this event is so fantastic, if I create a branched quest, so I come off here and I say complete narrative data task, and I will say go to location trigger of garage, and I will set the description override to be or go to the garage, then I can come in and fail this off here. So now I can either go and pick up the tires, in which case it'll destroy all the tires afterwards, or I can come in and destroy the tires on the failure point as well. But the reverse of this as well is I can also destroy anything. So if I come into the trigger here, we don't want this trigger to remain here afterwards. So if I come and give it a tag of garage go to location trigger, I can now come back into my events here and I can add another event of destroy all actors with tag, shift right click on it, and I can also paste it in. So no matter what you do, the game will clear itself up afterwards. The quest will no longer be there. So you can say I can come here and it'll say pick up the tires or go to the garage. So if I decide I want to just come to the garage instead, it doesn't matter what we do because the quest is self-destructive. It removes everything it doesn't need. So I've gone to the garage and you'll notice the tires have disappeared. Fantastic. So no longer is it there. So if you've got a complicated level where you go to the garage, you take out an enemy, you go up to the top level, you defuse the hostage situation, you go to the helicopter, all these checkpoints you can just wipe out at the end of the game. You can either make it even useful and add a generic tag to all of these, such as the name of the quest, and on quest succeed or fail, just destroy everything with that tag. Super useful. The next event we're going to look at, which is super useful, is the move NPC to actor node. So you can see I've already got it set up here, and again it's a super basic one. So I first get the goal actor and I cache that so I can reuse it later. actor. Then I come in and get the tag of the NPC, so this might be 15 NPCs, it might be 1, and then I loop over it, I get their AI controller and tell them, move to this goal. I've set an acceptance radius of 5, so they just don't keep walking and crashing into it because they can never get banged on 0. And that's the event. Super simple, but it can add so much life into your game. So if I come to get graph display text, all I've done is said move this NPC to this goal actor. That's it. So let's just give it a try then, so we know again. So if I come up and say grab the Nakamura twins, so grab her, and we'll say we'll grab Ayumi. So I will come in and I will say when we have to pick up the tires, I will add an event of move NPC to actor, and on the start I will say the NPC is Ayumi and the actor tag is, let's take her to Glenn. So she's going to walk to Glenn like so. Now if I compile and save it and test it, when we begin the quest we should see her. Now as you can see, she's walking over to Glenn. She's hungry. But it adds that little bit more life to the game. Granted, my walking animation's terrible, but she's walking to Glenn. And we can add this as many times as we want. So for example, if I was to grab her sister Yumi and say she's going to walk over to Carlos. So I'll come in, I'll add another event, and I will say that I want to move Yumi over to Carlos Vega. Maybe she's going to check out his car or something. And then just by simply adding that event, only on this quest, if you want them to move to a specific point, then we can make it happen. You see, I can run up and then the sisters should slowly dodge past each other. And there we go. And if I was to do this with every single NPC, how cool would that be? It would look super cool. It would add so much life into your game. And it's not just a case of making them walk up. You can make them run to a defensive position, or you can make them run to a specific waypoint to get away from the player, something like that. It's a super useful event. The next event I'm going to look at is more for storytelling games, but it is super useful nevertheless. And it's going to be the set NPC Dialogue event. So the prime example is if I was to walk up to, say, Tyler here, he's got some dialogue that he plays. So you can see it comes in, he mocks you a little bit, and then the dialogue ends right here with you completing the task. Fine. But once you've talked to him once, you can't talk to him again. And now I could drag off from the start node, and I could add Tyler another one, and then add more conditions to it. But after the length of a game, this is going to be a huge dialogue set if it contains everything Tyler talks about, which is not what we want. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, for now, as a test, duplicate his dialogue, and I'll call it After Race. So this is going to be the dialogue that he plays after you've won the race kind of thing. I'm going to delete everything off, and I'll just drag off from his, nice and easy, and I will say, nice job, kid. Guess you were better than I figured. So that's all he's going to say, and we can compile it. But at the moment, we've got no way of assigning that dialogue to him, which is where the event comes in. So if I come into my events, I've got my set NPC dialogue here. And in the execute event, it is a really simple function. This is the cool thing about events. So all I do is I loop over all my NPCs because they're the only ones that have dialogue. And then I set their dialogue to a dialogue class I've created as a variable. And then as a benefit, I've also said whether or not this new dialogue can be auto-triggered or not. So at the moment, on my NPC, I have a collider in front of them that activates dialogue automatically if you walk into it. Only if it's enabled. So you can see on Tyler, his dialogue is set as auto-enable. If it's not, then I have to press E to interact with him. And that's really the basic function. In the getGraphDisplayText, all it does is say set NPC's tag, dialogue, to the display name. So if we come and test this out, so after we collect all the tires, let's change Tyler's dialogue. So I will say set NPC dialogue. On my actual game, this will be after you finish the race, but I've not got that far yet. So let's come and grab his tag, Tyler Talk Johnson. And then on the quest, I will say set his tag to his new after race dialogue. And this time, it's going to be a bit salty that you've won, so he's not going to come up to you and say, nice job. It's not his character. So I'm going to untick auto-trigger dialogue, so it doesn't trigger it automatically. So now you can see, if I play the game now and talk to him, as soon as I walk up, he'll start mocking me if I avoid the quest. As you go, he's mocking me, blah, 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 he tells me off, whatever. If I walk back up to him, he doesn't want to say anything. Okay, fine. If I start the quest, though, and then pick up all the tires, his dialogue has now changed because, you know, I've won the race. I can walk up to him and it'll say, nice job, kid. I guess you were better than I figured. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? So now we've got evolving dialogue that splits over different asset files to make organization much easier. The writers will appreciate it because then multiple writers can work on one character, and all you do is call the correct event. Nice and easy. The next event is one I particularly really like because it means you can make all your quests completely self-contained. So what I mean by that is, at the moment, if I start my game, there's absolutely no reason I have to be forced to walk into that. So I can come and collect all the tires. Pop, 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 pop. Okay, we've got no more tires to pick up. If I start the quest, where do I get tires from? You can't, which means it's a problem. And the next event can actually solve this problem. And another benefit to having a self-contained quest is you can easily make a quest or mission selector where you jump to a specific mission. Think about Grand Theft Auto 5. Every single mission they've got, all the items, all the pedestrians, all the inventories they need to have, there is no way they're loading all that in the game at the beginning. So they'll use something probably very similar to how Narrative's event works and spawns it when the mission starts or when it requires it. And that's our next event, the spawn pickup event. And it's really, really simple. Again, all these events really are. So if I come into my spawn pickup event here, on the execute event, I'm passing in a lot of variables to this. I'm passing in the class of the pickup I want to pick up, but you'll notice it's actually set as another blueprint abstract pickup. So if I come and find this blueprint abstract pickup, here we are, you can see it's got nothing in it except a box collider that you can pick it up with. And when you trigger that box collider, all it does is have an event to say you've picked it up. So for the tasks, and then if there's any dialogue available, it calls it, otherwise it destroys it. That's it. And then all the children of this are stuff like my tires, my spark plug. So that's the type of class I pass into it. And that class has a spawn transform, so I can say where, what rotation, what scale. The dialogue, if it needs to play in it, and where it needs to start the dialogue from. That's optional, you don't need to add. Next, this is something new I'm starting to do. And on all of my events where I spawn something, or I spawn a dialogue trigger, I'm adding tags to it if I need to, where I add it in here. And the reason is, just going back to the first event, when I clear up such as testing, because that's the name of the quest, and then with one destroy event, I can wipe the entire quest out of existence, meaning it's really easy. And then that's all it does. On the get graph display text, I just say spawn pickup and I get the name of the pickup I'm doing. So let's give it a try then, because now what we can do is we can make these tires disappear and only appear when we start the quest. So I'm going to come back to my quest testing here, and on the pickup tire event here, so that's the branch we want it on, I'm going to add an event and I will say spawn pickup. And then inside here, I've got where I want to start it, so I want to do it at the beginning of this branch so the player can actually do it. The class I want to be my racing tires. There we go. The spawn transform, I'm just going to come back to my main and I'm going to scroll to the top. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to right click on the location to copy. I'm going to hold shift and left click to paste. All the rotation's fine because it rotates. Tags to add, I will just give it the name of the quest, so I will say testing. And then the dialogue I don't want to do. And that's how we spawn the first tire. So if I hold shift and right click it, I can add 4 dialogues, 4 events, and I can just paste over each one of them. I know I want to spawn in 4 tires, so let's open them all up. And the first transform I know will be this one here, so I'll shift right click, back to here, shift left click, and that's that one sorted. The next one will be the third one, shift right click, come back, shift left click, and then the final tire, shift right click, and then shift left click to paste. And that's it. You'll notice there's a glitch here with the text that is going to be resolved in the next version of Narrative. And then just because we're talking about our events, I'm also going to add the destroy all actors with tag event in, and I know I've set them all to a tag of testing. And I can copy this event and I can also paste it on the failure just so it clears itself up when we're done. So now if I come back to my world and delete these tires, so they're gone, I can start the game and the tires won't be there. I can't collect them because those tires are only available to this quest. So you can see absolutely nothing's happening. So you can see now if I start the quest, the tires will appear, and as I pick them up, 1, 2, 3, the final one disappears. Perfect. And you might think it looks a bit crap, they spawn directly in front of you. Just remember, in an actual game, they won't spawn directly in front of you. You'll spawn it strategically so you don't see it. For example, if I walk up to Carlos here, he has a very similar quest. Hey man, the dialogue will start and I can see him, my speaker's messed up. He's saying he's missing some stuff. And right there, you didn't even notice, but it spawned all the items around me. And without even noticing, the tires and everything have appeared around you and you didn't know. This is a prime example. I've spawned this one inside a building. You won't see it spawn, but strategically, it's there only when you need it. How cool is that? A super simple item spawner, and it helps you create the quests you need, making them optimized and lightweight. And because this quest is now fully self-contained here, in theory, we can move this to any level we want, and it should still work. And we can also add it to a menu that starts the quest when we click it, so you can repeat the same quest over and over again, and all it will do is spawn the tires every single time. Super, super useful. Now, while we're on making quests self-contained and really useful, another event you can add is to actually spawn in the GoToLocation triggers you need. So I need this garage to only be spawned in when I start that quest. There's no other reason for it to be there. It's just taking up unnecessary performance. And if you run to it before, you have the same issue. So the next event we're going to look at is the any GoToLocation node. So I don't actually have this one set up in this project yet, which is odd because I normally do, but that's fine. So I'm actually going to come and copy the spawn pickup node here. And I'm going to click copy, and I'm going to rename it to spawn GoToLocation trigger. I'm going to open this up. So in the class settings, I'm just going to make sure it's got a nice name. So spawn GoToLocation trigger. And for the category, I'll just set it to spawners. There we go. Back in the execute event, you can see I'm passing in a bunch of stuff here, but the class is wrong. I don't need the BPA pickup. So I'm actually going to select the GoToLocation trigger, but make sure you click the class reference, otherwise it won't work. And if you've watched my previous tutorial, you know what this BPA GoToLocation is. It's basically an abstract blueprint that handles all the GoToLocation triggers. And now I can plug this in like so. These will error because these don't need to be on this one. So I can click this node and refresh just to make sure there's nothing else there. We're all good. The tags to add, I want to add these tags again because if you remember me saying, it helps me clear up the entire quest. And that's it. That's all we need to do. So I can come into get ref display text. I can say spawn GoToLocation trigger. And I'm actually making this shorthand because on the node it will look a bit big. And then from the class, I can just do get class display name like so. I can now come and clear some of these variables up because we don't need them, compile and save. And that's the event. It's that simple. Then if I come into here and on this go to the garage part here, all I need to do is come in and add my new spawn GoToLocation trigger. It says spawn GTLL. You can see I can now populate it with what I need. So the class I want is the cube. So that's the one I've got there. The spawn transform will be whatever this one is. So I can come in, I can shift right click the location, come back here, shift left click to paste, and I'll do the same for the rotation, and finally the same for scale. There we go. The tags to add, I'll just add testing again so it clears itself up. But there's one key difference here that I have forgot we need to add, and I actually need to tell the GoToLocation node what the name of the location is. So you'll see on here, I have a location name telling it which location you've arrived at, but this isn't currently exposed. So I'm going to come into the BPA GoToLocation trigger, and where the location name is here, I'm just going to click it and make sure I tick expose on spawn. And this does exactly what it says. It exposes this variable on spawn, so you can set it. So you can see here, location name. So I can promote this to a variable. I'll just keep it called location name, compile and save. Now if I come back to my quest, you can see it's now asking for a location name. So I will say garage. If I compile, save, and delete this spawn here, now this quest is 100% controlled by it. Generates everything it needs, it clears itself up. And this is a fantastic way to create your quests because mission selectors become a thing. If you have quests that load up other quests, so for example, if I complete the quest where I talk to all these people and then that spawns the tires, then starting this quest would be entirely useless. So having self-contained quests are really, really good. So you can see it wants me to pick 3 tires up. But if I ignore that and come to the garage instead, our GoToLocation spawner should have kicked in, meaning this should fail the quest. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? Super, super useful. And for one final tip, while we're speaking of how cool spawners and self-contained quests are, sometimes you want dialogue to play what's not connected to an NPC. So like on here, I have 2 NPCs there I want to speak to at once. So instead of only applying it to one, what I have done instead is created this dialogue trigger here that literally just calls the dialogue when you walk up to it. So if we take a look at it, all it is a trigger, just like the doorway. When you come up to it and you interact with it, if it's an auto-triggered dialogue, which most of mine are at the moment, then all it does is begin it. But what if this dialogue is only part of a quest? So let's say you walk up to the garage here and you ignore the tires. So what I'm going to do is I want to spawn a dialogue trigger right out of here, which basically we can use later to trigger a phone call or something and says, hey, you forgot the tires, go and get them, then come back. Nice and easy. So if I just place that where I want it, so I say, yeah, that's probably a good point. So again, I don't have a spawn for this one. It's another common one I would have thought I did. So I'll copy the GoToLocation trigger because we've just done it. And instead I will rename it spawn dialogue trigger. and then I'll open it up. I'll go to class settings and I'll make sure it's all got names and everything. Spawn, dialogue, trigger, and then in the category it's spawners, so that's all good. Back in my execute event, I no longer want the BPA GoToLocation, instead I want the dialogue trigger, but I need to make sure I click class reference. It will then circle around and say some things are different, which is fine. I can right click refresh. You can see all it needs is to get rid of the location name. And just like we did before, I'm not able to tell it which dialogue it needs to use. So if I just come back to the dialogue trigger, select the dialogue, I can expose on spawn. And while I'm here, I'll do auto trigger as well. Now back to my event, you can right click refresh and you'll see I now have my two properties, so I can promote these to variables. I'll do the same for dialogue, like so. Then I can come across, add the extra tags I need, and it's done. I can come to the get graph display text and I will say spawn dialogue trigger, and I will just place in that down. I don't need the location name anymore, so I can compile and save. And that's the event. So say, for example, we come into here and we can get rid of this for now. And we say you've gone to the garage, but you haven't got the tires, because otherwise the tires will go up there. So I can add a state here, which will spawn our new dialogue trigger. So spawn dialogue trigger, and it will ask for all the default properties it needs. So the class will be the dialogue trigger. The spawn location will be that location there. And then I can copy the rotation and the scaler just set to 111, so that's fine. The tags to add, I will add testing, so it clears itself up if we don't hit this. And then the auto trigger dialogue, I will make it auto triggered. And this is where we create just some random dialogue. So if I just quickly jump up to my dialogue, create a new dialogue calling DB tires not found. If I just delete the text here, in the class defaults, I will make sure that free movement is ticked so it doesn't block us. It can be exited if we need it to, and it doesn't stop movement, and it doesn't spawn a camera. Now what I can do from here, I can just drag off, add a player response, auto select it, and say, I should collect the tires first. Just like that. I can now compile save. I can add this to my spawn here, so it knows which one to do. Tires not found. And then the next state after this, let's add a dialogue, so it waits for that dialogue to finish. So play dialogue node. The node I need to finish is this one here, so should I collect? Paste it in here. I'm actually going to make this objective hidden because I don't want it showing at all. So this is more of a hidden task. And then after that, I'm going to make it drag you straight back up to here after the state. So it restarts the quest exactly how you need it to. So you can see it comes in. If you go to the garage first, it will spawn the dialogue trigger outside of the garage. Then it will wait for you the player to finish and say, I should get the tires. And then it'll action the tires like so. We may have to move these spawn pickups, so I'm just going to shift left click the events and shift left click to paste. I'm going to shift right click to copy, because otherwise every time it comes to here it will spawn the tires again. At least here it will only spawn it once. So now from just simply combining some easy events, we've made our quest not only completely quest contained, so you can spawn it anywhere. If I start the quest, the tires appear, but if I ignore that and instead go into the garage, just with a few events, we've turned the quest to something completely different. I can stand here, nothing happens. If I walk in, it says, nothing to do. I'll look around. Maybe I'll walk back outside. Maybe you'll add some text. And it'll say, I should collect those tires first. And it'll say, go and pick the tires up. How cool is that? So now if I come and pick the tires up, 1, 2, 3, everything disappears, everything is cleaned up. And you can see if I start it again just to take the other side of the quest, if I start the quest, boom, the tires appear, 1, 2, 3, everything down here despawns, it's all there. How cool is that? Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this has been helpful. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.